everyone. Today, our team process panel will be presenting a project on project crashing schedule to reduce its duration and subsequent impact on the project budget. Specifically, we crashed the original project schedule from 20 to 17 weeks, aiming to finish it faster. However, you'll come to see that this acceleration came at the expense of the cost. So our task was to evaluate the financial implications of this decision, particularly the increase in labor, hiring, as well as the firing costs. The goal is to understand the trade-off between time savings and the increased costs. So before going through that, I will introduce my team members. So myself, Pranit, will be the project manager for this week, and our team members are Sarah, Daniel, Regan, Abdarafi, and Ransom. So executive summary. Let's start with the summary. So in this project, we reduced the project timeline from 20 to 17 weeks. However, as we tried to speed up the project, the total cost increased significantly. Specifically, the labor cost increased by $18,700 due to the need for additional workers, and hiring costs rose by $16,137 as we brought in more personnel for the critical tasks. Firing costs also jumped by $24,095 because we reallocated the workers from non-critical tasks to the critical ones. In total, the project budget increased by $77,631, bringing the total project budget cost to $8,03,412, which is over the initial budget constraint of $7,50,000. This shows that although we finished the project in less time, the cost increased considerably, especially due to the extra labor and the workforce adjustment. So here we calculated the refined budget and as well as the crashed budget of labor, supply, subtotals, hiring and firing costs, and the indirect costs. So coming to the refined budget under normal schedule. In the normal schedule, we took into account labor costs as well as supplies cost, and we added the hiring and firing costs based on the number of workers required for each project. So for the hiring cost, we estimated a cost of 3,800 per person, and the firing cost we calculated as 12 days of workers' pay, which was factored into the budget. So we calculated this for each month, so we could finish it off in like 17 weeks. The total refined budget under the normal conditions is $7,25,780, which serves as a baseline for comparison with the crashed budget. So this is adjustable man hours for each activity. So one of the most important aspects of this project was adjusting the man hours. So for this, each task, uh, we need to fit the man hours so that the project would complete in 17 weeks. So we carefully analyzed each task and determined how many additional workers were needed for the critical task. This allowed us to compress the schedule without sacrificing the quality or completeness of the project. For example, critical tasks saw an increase in labor hours, and whereas non-critical tasks had their labor hours reduced. By adjusting the man hours this way, we made sure that the total labor force could handle the increased workload without impacting the overall project quality. So this was crucial for achieving the project shortened timeline. So here we calculated professional hours, skilled hours, and unskilled hours after crashing for each activity. So this is an illustration or the table for the adjustable manners for each activity. So coming to crashed network, once the manners were adjusted, we created a crashed network. So in this, it is essentially a revised project schedule that incorporates the changes made during the crashing process. We focused on speeding up the critical path while minimizing the changes to normal critical tasks. However, it is important to note that some activities could not be crashed due to the lack of slack. Additionally, some tasks experienced delays that were unavoidable, such as waiting for raw materials to cure. So these constraints had to be considered in our schedule adjustments. So here as well, we calculated normal labor budget for each task and crashed labor budget for each task in the project, and we tried to get the difference between the crashed labor hours, labor budget and the normal labor budget. So the overall difference we got is like $18,700. So whereas coming to the crashed budget, after discussing the schedule, we created the crashed budget. So the crashed budget reflects the increased cost required to finish the project sooner. As shown, the labor cost went up to meet the complex schedule, and the hiring costs also increased, reflecting the need to hire more workers for the critical task. And the firing costs increased due to the workforce redistribution. So by the end of this project, the total cost rose to like 8,03,412, which is significant increase compared to the original budget of 7,25,780. So this shows that the financial impact of crashing the project timeline. So to conclude, the crashing the project resulted in shorter timeline, but at the higher financial cost. Specifically, the labor cost increased by $18,700, hiring cost rose by $16,137, and firing cost surged by like $24,095. These changes led to the total cost increase of $77,631. So while the project duration was shortened, the budget exceeded the original estimate of like constant like $750,000. So this shows the trade-off between reducing the timeline and the associated increase in cost. It's clear that while crashing can lead to faster completion, it requires careful management of the additional costs, especially in labor and resource allocation. So thank you so much for your attention.